You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Welcome to Women Disrupting, a podcast amplifying the voice of women who are disrupting the status quo to create a more equitable, united, and peaceful world. In this episode, I speak with Jo Howard, primary teacher and leader turned certified coach, therapist, and business strategist. Jo gets it. She understands the toll of burnout because she's been there. When she looks back on her teaching career, she can see how there were very few weeks, even days, where she wasn't suffering with incredibly high levels of stress, and like many, normalised this way of living. The reactiveness, the dysregulation, the lack of time to recover before starting again. Jo talks about how she turned pain into power by setting up her own business, Adventures After Teaching, helping hundreds of teachers to understand how to use their transferable skills and walk away from the classroom without the guilt. This episode is not just for burnt out teachers, it's for anyone who is in a career that is causing burnout. Maybe you think this is your lot, but it's not. Jo shows us how any career change at any time of life is possible. Hey, welcome Jo to Women Disrupting podcast. How are you feeling today?
Good, thank you, Yasmin. Yeah, very well. Friday fun day, as I say to the kids.
Love it. So you're here today because we met many years ago, actually. Probably like over 5 years ago, and you came into my life at the start of my journey out of teaching.
Yeah.
And I just think what you've created since then is amazing. So to give our listeners a bit of a summary, you specialise in supporting, this is what I got from your website, exhausted educators to recover from burnout, regain confidence, and successfully reposition their skills to make a career change. Now, that tagline speaks to a need that I've talked to you about before, and it suggests there's a big market of burnt out teachers out there that need help.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
I think it's across many public sectors. It's not just education, but maybe there, is a larger proportion of women, particularly maybe like women who are parents as well, who just literally can't sustain the pace of work, particularly with the lack of resources, I think. So often, not necessarily the practical resources, but the human resources. There isn't the support in the day-to-day to do the job they signed up for. And I think that's what's so heartbreaking for so many, that there is this real sense of vocation. They've gone into it obviously for really kind of impact driven reasons. And over the years, resources have depleted, expectations have got higher, scrutiny has increased massively. And I think for most teachers, they're walking around like a ticking time bomb, genuinely. I think in terms of burnout, if we define burnout as those repeated patterns of unresolved stress and what happens on a daily basis. I follow somebody on Instagram and she always talks about like the bears. There are no bears. I love that analogy because that really resonates for me. There are no tigers, there are no bears. But actually, when you're having that conversation with that parent, that email, etc., your whole body is going into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, and we don't resolve it. So we do a lot of work around burnout recovery, kind of, I suppose, polyvagal theory, which sounds a bit odd, but it's so relevant and relative to making a successful career change, to understand your relationship with stress. So gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, essentially, I think fundamentally to do the job well is unsustainable. It's just unsustainable. And it feels like it's either burnout or tap out, which is why I retrained as a coach in the first place, to kind of challenge that it shouldn't be the case that either we go and burn out, or we just have to take a step back and say, I can't do this anymore. Like, I found that so infuriating, but it did lead me to this very different niche of advocating for those going and saying, that's okay. Permission, you've got one life, and it's okay.
And when these teachers come to you, do you see a commonality in the symptoms that they're presenting for burnout? And if so, what are they?
In terms of symptoms of burnout, it will often be growing apathy for the role, that kind of cynicism and resentment, which is not maybe the obvious one that, we might think of, burnout being the kind of crying in the car, not being able to get out the car. And a lot of clients do come to me at that point where the body literally shuts down because they've not been listening to those somatic signs of, digestive issues, repeated headaches, not being able to sleep, etc. But the apathy can be an interesting one. I think the idea of cognitive function breaking down, which is often most frightening, where particularly, women at all different ages, but there'll be other contributing factors, but they might be going from being very, high functioning on the ball to be dropping said balls, and self-esteem starts plummeting. And that's what's so difficult and really feeds into that idea of being trapped and not able to do anything else. When you're in that place, the thought of making a change, that idea of, if I'm not good enough to do my own job well, how would I do anything else? So that's often kind of what I'm speaking to. But physical symptoms, it may be those classic signs of anxiety. We have a lot of members who the anxiety attacks ramp up, versus that growing sense of depression and hopelessness, that they have no agency for change. So I think going to the GP, as any conversation I have about burnout, and just saying, get that objective perspective. There are very clear diagnostic tools to look at levels of depression, anxiety, etc. And GPs are very, very used to seeing teachers. A large proportion of the teachers that we support have been signed off for work-related stress. So it's a very unique journey then, but it's why we have that foundational well-being and kind of back to balance emphasis, because there's not many teachers that come out unharmed, unscathed, I'd say.
It's quite, I guess, emotional, I think, sometimes when I discuss this and I dive deep into it, because I think I've been there. And when I think if I'd been to the doctor at certain points in my career, especially at the end of my teaching career, and explained to them what was wrong with me, they probably would have signed me off sick or even put me on antidepressants. But I managed to find different tools to not do that. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those tools, because they do support people who need it at that time. But I think I was lucky in the respect that I was determined to find alternative, more holistic approaches. So in terms of approaches other than medication or going off sick, what kind of tools do you use with your clients to support them in coming out of that burnout cycle?
Yeah, well, I would say and going off sick, because if you're at that point, you need to be out of that environment. And that's really important from a safeguarding perspective for you to say there's nothing wrong with going off sick. That's a really important message. I mean, I'm a trained yoga teacher. I'm a trained cognitive hypnotherapist. I've trained in mindfulness, acceptance, commitment therapy. So the tools we have within the academy are very focused holistically on understanding your relationship with stress, and giving you those tools, whether that's through meditation. If you struggle with meditation and mindfulness, there are more body-based practices that we use. So we have weekly sessions for those that not just are signed off sick, but all the teachers in the community, where myself or other therapists in our community will come in and we'll do sessions around, as I said, like acceptance commitment therapy. So working with tools around not being in control, which is really key. Lots of tools around rebuilding confidence and that sense of agency, I think is really important. I think half the battle is that there isn't the space within the system for teachers to put those practices in place. If there were, we'd both be there, Yasmin. At the end of the day, we both still be there. You know, like we can do those things. And I'm not saying everybody should lead. The system would break down, of course they would. But I think it's so dangerous to place the responsibility or the accountability at the feet of the teachers who don't have any capacity to look after themselves if they're going to do the job to the standard that they're held to. Do you know what I mean? I think we take a lot of responsibility for it's me, I'm failing. And that's what I'm really passionate about highlighting. It's like, it's not you, actually. It's really not you.
No.
So yeah, there's loads of additional things to support. And a lot of GPs, to be honest, they will recommend all of that. First line will be talking therapies. They're not going to offer you antidepressants. They'll offer you talking therapy, CBT, which is the basis of what we also offer within the academy as well.
No, that's a really important point you made there. There's so much stigma with going off sick and it's seen as a weakness, but I guess it's getting your power back, isn't it? Inevitably, to find the space to do those tools, because I remember meditation was recommended to me by certain people when I was at burnout. And I just, because of the apathy, I just thought, I was so like closed to it. I just thought, as if like sitting after I come in and I feel this way for 20 minutes, silence is going to help me. I just didn't have the mindset for it. And I think if I'd had the space, maybe if I was signed off sick, I'd be like, okay, what else I've got to do now? Let's try it.
Yeah. And it's really important to recognize what energy you're sitting in, because some of the practices we will be very much for those people that are in that very heavy, low space, and meditation isn't the answer necessarily, so it's a bit like, working with children when it's like managing your engine, do we need to bring the energy up? Do we need to get moving? And like, it will literally be for me a prescription of kitchen dancing. Your relational needs are huge. Are you seeing people? Are you hiding? Like, notice where you're avoiding. Like, anxiety isn't the problem, avoidance is the problem. So really scrutinize, like, how am I sabotaging my own recovery as well? And when you're in that low state, I think that it's harder almost than when we're in that heightened anxiety in the head, because those body-based practices maybe are a bit more, they're not necessarily more accessible. Do you know what I mean though? It feels like a quicker path sometimes to, it might be hard to do the meditation or the mindfulness, but let's try the yoga, let's try the mindful walking, or, we've done art therapy sessions and all sorts in the community. And that's when I think it's really odd. Obviously we sell supporting people with their CVs, building their confidence, helping them reposition themselves and sell themselves at interview. But if you speak to any member of the membership of the academy, they will all say, I didn't think I was burnt out. I didn't think I needed it, but all the back to balance resources were amazing. And that's what I'll take with me. So it's this kind of covert kind of burnout recovery, which is not a sexy thing to sell, but I managed to do it in a different way.
Yes, exactly. And because I said at the beginning, there's a market for it, and there's a need for it. And that's what successful businesses do. They find the need and they provide it. Let's talk about the demographic here, because you've mentioned women quite a lot, and we've talked about this before, because typically the teaching profession is made up of large majority women. Yeah. So large majority of your clients will be women.
Yeah. Which
leaves us with the question, is this just a profession that's not conducive to the way a woman is, the way her body works, the natural path for some women to go on to be a mother, or is there potential for change for it to work for women?
Yeah, I think that, our largest demographic is women. The majority that do have children have reached that point of a very changing sense of priorities and the stark reality that they can't work 12, 14 hours a day anymore. So therefore, their own standards, if you like, are dropping, and they feel like they're doing a bad job, whether that's at home with those relationships or in the classroom. So I would say the majority of our members are in some sort of caring role at home, whether that is for children or for aging parents. They definitely have other commitments, which mean they are spread very, very thin. It's really hard to think myself, if I hadn't gone down the path of having children, would I still be in education? Would I be a head teacher by now? I would be doing something in a leadership position. I think I still would be experiencing those cycles of burnout, whether that speaks to those kind of hormonal cycles, the makeup for myself. I mean, we have a large proportion of our community that will probably, it'd fall into two camps. So there would be the kind of the hyperachievers, the ones that push and drive and prove that toxic productivity, like no space for rest. And the kind of alternative is that kind of that pleasing energy with very few boundaries. They both have the same, I suppose, byproduct of that toxic productivity and that inability to stop. But what drives them are very different.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Very different. Like everything I do doesn't come from an energy of wanting to be loved and pleased and accepted. It does come from an energy of wanting to have as much impact as I possibly can, to be doing the best all the time. And if it's not bigger, it's not good enough, So yeah, I've kind of gone off a bit of a tangent, but I think it's more about your personality and as you're getting older, as responsibilities and priorities change, how you can flex and adapt. Yeah, or whether it's just an opportunity to shine a light on those kind of sabotaging thoughts and behaviors that have driven you for your career, like not giving them the credit. There's so many lies that those subtle flavors of inner critic will tell us. You're successful because, but we don't recognize the depletion and the sacrifice that goes along with it. I do think there's healthy ways to lead. I do believe that. That's why why I started on this journey. So whether it's just naturally not sustainable, I do think for most teachers and leaders, they are a little bit of a ticking clock unless they have that regular support and space. If they're having regular leadership coaching, resilience coaching, if they have the space to actually go for a swim after school and connect with their children, all these other things, yes, then I absolutely do think it's sustainable and really impactful. If those things aren't available or possible because of that environment, I don't see how it is sustainable for anyone, men or women.
Yeah,
or non-binary people, etc. We do have men in the community who are also signed off, and there's that real toxic masculinity of I have failed twice as hard in their eyes. It's tricky.
Yeah, no, for sure, you're right. Men and women get signed off sick in the profession. Women leave, like yourself, who are married with children and have families, or like me, are not married with children and don't have families.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's quite nuanced, isn't it? It's not helpful sometimes, I suppose, to generalize as much. But one thing I would like just to dive a bit deeper into there is when you were talking about some of the tools and strategies that you can put in place.
Yeah,
make it not just teaching, any profession, any place, one that is conducive to well-being. So you mentioned coaching for leaders and making that a priority, which many workplaces see more as a added extra and a luxury, and not right now, but we know as coaches how important that is. You mentioned the ability to be able to switch off at 3 when the bell rings if you're in school and go for a swim and not feel guilty about it. Talk to me about and maybe some other things that you think would make a workplace in general conducive to well-being.
Yeah, I think that the reason why the coaching is so significant and impactful is because it helps that individual to reflect on their relationship with work. Because, like you talk about you and I, Yasmin, I would throw out there that teaching wasn't filling the gap, the hole that we were expecting it to. You know, that actually by making teaching our entire life, as it were, there were many layers to life's experience we were missing out on. And I think it's having that space to, reflect on your wider relationship with your status, with your identity at work and success and relationship with the team, etc. That's what makes the difference, because having somebody, call that out and say, like, so who are you seeing this weekend? What are you doing that's for you? And if you're struggling with that because you love your job and you love being in it and this, that, and the other, it's like, it's not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if there isn't the balance, there's only one way that's going to go. Do you know what I mean? So I think that it's those conversations around relationships with productivity, with what gives me satisfaction at work. Like, does it come from a place of scarcity? Does it come from that away from or towards motivation? Like, am I healthy in my relationship with work and productivity? And that's what I think coaching gives. And that's how I think it can prevent burnout, I suppose.
Yeah, no, for sure. Anything else that you think, aside from the coaching, would make a difference?
I do think when we do our sort of like needs audit, like analysis at the beginning, when members come to us, we look at like different areas of needs, and often ones that are surprising to them are the relational needs. As I've said, that we think about the physical, exercise and drinking, etc. And we say, you think, they're boring, but actually, by the time you actually get, a good night's sleep and drink some more water and don't have so much processed food, you do have more energy. You're like, oh, damn it. I didn't want that to be true. But I think relationally, noticing how disconnected you are from people is a really big thing. I think when we are in cycles of stress at work, we do become far more disassociated from our bodies because we haven't got time for it. And I think that another extension of that is how disconnected we can be from family and friends. And even when we're there, we're not really present. So I think that's, not only is it a huge red flag, being in a room with other people and not being very connected, but it is also the antidote to build those relationships back up again. The other need often that will show up really starkly is those kind of spiritual needs. So that relationship with that sense of self, that sense of like source, and it doesn't have to be, really woo or anything, but, coming back to that mindfulness, being in nature, how is your relationship with being still? It's huge. Still was never safe for me, never safe. And I still struggle with it. Now I have a very different relationship. 4 years on, I have a very, very different relationship with stillness and quiet and solitude. But coming back to the coaching again, I do think for most people that are struggling with or on the road to burnout, whatever the motivations are, another really telling sign will be how they feel when they are told not to do anything.
Okay. And I wanted to actually, you're the second person recently to say this to me. So I want to just run with this. This kind of challenge around being relaxed and still, which sounds in theory like, oh, it's an easy thing to do because you're not doing anything. But just talk to me about, where does the tension come from for people who struggle with that?
I think there's different kind of flavors to it. I think for a lot of people, they don't feel deserving of rest. They feel like they need to earn it. And because they feel like they need to earn it, therefore they've never done enough. And particularly when we're so used to putting other people's needs before our own, that sense of boundary is non-existent. That physical, emotional, mental boundary is very, very tricky to actually define and see. And by not having that, we may be then pushing down quite a lot of anger and resentment, which can then manifest in all different ways, can't it, in terms of physical ailments. But there is, I think, that pattern that we see over and over again with the inability to stop and rest, which, yeah, as I said, it can be putting yourself last. It can also be from that really like high energy, I think, need to be busy. And it's less about looking after other people. It's just not wanting to be with oneself. And that if you stop, then actually the fear of whatever it is coming out, you know, bag of cats facing you. I think it's just an interesting inquiry for anyone just to think about, you know, how do I feel when I'm challenged with the idea of giving myself permission to not do anything. I mean, the way it's almost the antidote for me, if I'm feeling very burnt out, I have to have a good book. Because if I have a good book, I can hyper focus on that and I am actively relaxing then. Don't, I will go and do another course. I'll be reading this, that, and the other. And it's all more work stuff. Like that would be my hyper focus. But I personally have to be very, very careful of that because I go through those cycles of burnout. And we call it like God mode, when you've like got that great idea and it's almost manic. It's absolutely manic. I had a great plan the other day and I didn't sleep properly for 2 days, like literally buzzing. And like the come down from that and those anyway, going down more of a neurodiversity discussion there, I think. But I think, yeah, relationship with permission to stop is really interesting to reflect on. And also the quality of that stopping. You know, I can scroll on my phone and procrastinate over something. It's not a deliberate, intentional choice to replenish. It's still avoiding. I do one session and it's around procrastination versus self-care. Like really scrutinizing in that moment. What do I need versus what am I hiding from? Like, is there a fear underneath this that I'm avoiding, or am I actively, purposely, intentionally relishing in that replenishment?
Yeah. No, for sure. You mentioned neurodiversity there. So just tell me a little bit more about how burnout might show up for, you know, your neurodiverse clients.
I think it is the repeated cycles of burnout, that habitual pattern of great idea, new focus, hyperfixation, go, like complete time collapse, no sense of kind of day and night or other people's around you, other people's needs, because you're in the zone. And then that inevitable crash and lack of energy. I think it can represent for people in different ways. For me, as I said, it will be the great idea, and then I will go off on a tangent and, you know, bring everybody along, and then the reality hits, and the executive function skills to actually like break things down and plan it out might then be a little bit overwhelming, or suddenly you're in a room for over 1,000 people and thinking, what have I done? And it's for me, there's one meme I saw on Instagram. It's the classic kind of, you know, self-diagnosis sort of things on Instagram, but which I absolutely love. And one of, I think it was an ADHD coach I was following, and she said, you know, my ADHD is writing checks my autism can't cash. That is my life. That is my life, basically. So I will have all the ideas and I will be there at the front, selling myself, advocating for other people, shouting about impact. And the next minute be like, oh my goodness, I can't people anymore. I just need to go into a dark room. It's so overstimulating. I can't cope. And because you can't necessarily predict it, I mean, maybe you can if you get to know yourself a little bit better. I think in lockdown particularly, I really noticed the spaciousness of not constantly analysing interactions in relationship. It wasn't just the lack of the sensory overwhelm in the classroom, which was huge. Like, you know, being like, I thrive on stress, completely addicted to stress. Like, that's another conversation. You know, there's a lot of dopamine in stress, and there's lots of patterns then. And I used to always say at the beginning of my coaching journey, working with kind of burnt out leaders, that I would rather be overwhelmed than underwhelmed. I would choose anxiety over depression any day of the week. And that's what I'm saying about that, chasing, running away from the stillness. And I think there's probably a lot of people that can relate to that. They'd rather be stressed and in highly responsive environments than face the come down and what comes with that.
Yes, and I guess because when you get the come down, you need support mechanisms, don't you? You need other professionals or other services or other tools that you might not have. So is it any wonder that people avoid that? Because what the hell do you do when you get there?
Yeah, there's a great book. I'll share a link with you, Yasmin, around It's like burnout recovery, like with an autism focus.
Oh, brilliant.
And what I love about it is it's chapter by chapter. It's really, really easy to break down, but it's looking at these tools when you're feeling well. And I think that's the same for any sort of, and I'm going to say chronic health condition, because I do suffer with like chronic migraines and tension, which are very likely related. But the same applies, like when you're well, looking at what can I put down in moments of tension? Where can I call on additional layers of support in moments of tension? You know, can I have that shopping list saved on my Asda or my Sainsbury's delivery that I can just click, fill basket? It's those little things, you know, like when you actually have all your marbles there, as it were, and you're like, what would be the emergency toolbox I can fall back on? Like, yes, I will ask, you know, so-and-so to pick up the kids, or, you know, Brené Brown talks about that, doesn't she, in terms of relationships and recognizing that in a partnership, you're never going to both be 100%, and that the ebb and flow of being like, you know, I'm actually 40% today. I need you to pick up the slack. So being in tune and with yourself, whether that's, you know, going through perimenopause and menopause is very similar, isn't it, in terms of fluctuating emotional needs, physical needs, and recognizing when I'm crashing, when I'm deplete, how can I bring that love and compassion? It's like, that is so central to everything we do. And it is almost that kind of reparenting. I just think that is the antidote for so much. To, you know, we would never say to a child that's saying, I can't do this anymore, I'm struggling, come on, like, just, you know, pull your socks up, let's get on with it. You know, so to talk to ourselves with that loving kindness of like, I hear you, I get it. Like, I've got you. You're all right. You're all right. We're just going to take a breath right now. I think they're the types of things we can do for ourselves when we're really up against it.
Yeah.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
For sure. And when you said that was it. That was a golden nugget in itself when you said make decisions or plan when you're well.
Yeah.
And previous to that, you alluded to lockdown, which for many was a really stressful period.
Yeah.
I remember it as an amazing time in my life because I was still teaching, and all of a sudden I was at home on my own in silence, as opposed to the manicness of schools. And I was like, this is wonderful. Yeah. I was like, wow, like my nervous system is settling down, even though I was delivering lessons online and it was incredibly lonely at times. I started to feel better in myself to make the decision to leave.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should underestimate the power of making decisions and planning when we're well. It sounds so simple, but I get it.
You know, absolutely. When I had a client the other day, we have a phone call all around, you know, being in that space of burnout recovery, and she was saying about like hitting a really, really low point, maybe like a few days ago. And I just said to her, you know, like we talked about different support lines that she could phone, and I was like, can you do me a favor? Can you phone them today and just say to them, this is what happens when I start to spiral. This is how I feel. This is how I behave. What would you recommend that I can put in place for myself that would help me phone you when I need to? Because it helps in two ways, doesn't it? You take out the social anxiety of all of those steps, you know, all of those transitions, because you've actually already done it the once. But also you are talking from that high functioning perspective to another specialist and saying, right, okay, let's brainstorm this together. And I do this with clients all the time, like we kind of get very meta, like talking about those different parts of us. But I think it's so helpful. And I remember saying that to a health visitor when I had my first child. I just said, there's a risk factor for postnatal depression for me. I need you to watch for this, 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 and this. And I think, so the self-awareness, not to undermine my previous point of, we can't take responsibility, etc., but recognizing the ebbs and flows and what's helpful in those moments. I mean, I used to have, the friends that I would phone that I'd say, I'm feeling really rubbish today. And then saying, do you want me to come over? It's like, no, I don't want to see anybody. And then saying, right, so we have to get out. And vice versa. We all have those patterns. This gets back to those relational needs again. Because we don't have that. That is the number one priority of what we need to put in place.
Oh, so true. That is such a good one, isn't it? I've never thought about that one before, but that is a nugget in itself as well. Just like having those people to go, I'm this, and this at the moment. What do I need to do? Yeah, it's but you need to be aware of what the sort of symptoms are, don't you?
Absolutely. And this is 4 years of having done various therapy certifications and things and geeking out on it. So but this is where if you can bring it to women in kind of accessible ways that they have permission to invest time more than the money in themselves, because while you said about there being a market for burnout, people don't invest in themselves to prevent or recover from burnout at all. So there's amazing, teacher wellbeing coaches, burnout prevention coaches out there. But when I was in that space, I wouldn't have recognized it as burnout, let alone invested in that. I would have invested in the transformation and the leadership coaching or the solution. I always say retraining as a yoga teacher and as a CBT hypnotherapist was my kind of trauma response. It was that I need to fix it. So what I'll do is I'll fix everybody else.
Yes, I'm there. I've done it myself. Oh goodness. In terms of that's an interesting one actually. Just talking about career change, because I know this is a cliche, but you're at risk, aren't you, of jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire when you do a career change. So, what's your best bit of advice for anyone who is thinking about or in the process of a career change?
I think the first brutal bit of advice or thing to remember is that you take you with you. So do with that what you will. And we do say that to every kind of group that come to work with us. That's why we have to prioritize understanding the psychology of career change, but more importantly, your relationship with stress and identity and work, because you have an opportunity, if you're going to invest in yourself, again, energy as well as money, do it right. So take the time to allow space to explore all those things. That will be putting in tools, seeing what works for a lot of our clients. It's fundamentally it's noticing, so it's making space to notice how I'm responding is the foundational piece for us. And a lot of our clients will go away and say, I noticed this. I love it when I hear it. We have, our alumni that come back and they talk about their first day and their first week. I'm noticing I'm feeling this, or I'm noticing I'm thinking this. That sounds really obvious, but we're not used to doing that in the reactive state at all. I've noticed that I've already been looking for the person that's going to be my nemesis at work. Mm-hmm. I've noticed that I'm already, feeling that this person is much better than I am. And there's common stories, there's limiting beliefs that we can go back to, obviously, what are the core fears? But that, I think that has the biggest impact on successful career change. Yes, we can absolutely rebrand your skills. We can match those transferable skills to different industries and talk about what lights you up and where you would be best placed in terms of environment. But there's a reason why you're kind of at this crossroads, and often it will be down to your relationship with work identity. And it's things like those. I used to have that belief as a teacher: if I'm not tired, I haven't worked hard enough. I don't know. I wouldn't have articulated it.
Yeah,
there is that almost. It's weak to have lots of time and space and stuff, because there is an undercurrent of competitiveness. It's not It's not often highlighted, but there is a lot of inherent competition still, I think, not just in teaching, I'm sure in other workplaces as well, where we bet ourselves against other people. But yeah, so I think that the most important thing I'd say is to do that kind of inner work, if you like, around when was I most confident? You know, when were things easeful? Am I being really honest with myself? Am I looking back on that with rose tinted glasses? Have I always depleted? Have I always made myself a little bit unwell because I have unrealistic expectations? Or
yeah, you spot on. The career change doesn't mean to say the career change is the wrong step. I think if you do the work on what your career anchors are and your needs, it will be the better path for you.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change you. And you're right, you have to expect the same little issues. They might go away for a while, but they'll resurface and you've got to deal with them. I'm talking, I guess, from my personal experience of a career change, and I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sensing that it was the same for you. And I guess that's why, if you do have a career change, finding support to get you through that is important. In terms of support that's available, I mean, I know personally what it looked like for me, but what support might someone look for if they were seeking a career change? It might not be an in-person career coach. The things are out there.
I think, starting with those career anchors and values is really important. So giving yourself permission and space to really reflect on what is important to me. Like where do I feel that sense of integrity and alignment? That's what I'm so passionate about, is like actually coming to a place of understanding what is aligned. Not to say we're going to be there skipping through daisies all day long, but it's almost like we don't expect to be happy at work a lot of the time. So funny, isn't it? Again, like, we get one chance at this. One chance. It's just like, come on. Like, there are plenty of people. I love my job. I love my day-to-day. It doesn't mean it's not hard work, but I have created something that allows for my personality and my energy with the fluctuations. So yes, with the career anchors and with values is a good starting point. I think related to that are those must-haves. Like, what do I need for where I am in my life right now? Not who I was 20 years ago when I started this job, but where I am now. What do I need and want? What do I need and want from my broadest circle of support as well, which will obviously change. What was I going to say? And then I think it comes to that environment. So it's, I say you take yourself with you, but the change of environment is the most significant thing, I think. So understanding, do I need to be around other people? So that's where I often start, how peopled out are you? Like, if you're really peopled out, we might need to just take a step back and a break from people for a bit. Doesn't mean it's forever, but to give you that space. How about a hybrid role? How about a remote role? Just initially. We've got other clients who they have to have the structure and the support of a team around them face to face, or they are at risk of depression. So again, that self-awareness, and as teachers, particularly, to come out and not have the same level of structure for all different levels is quite a fun thing to navigate. But yeah, so understanding the environment you want to be in, like how much connection to people, I think, is the most important thing. And then it's reflecting on your transferable skills. So which are the parts of your job, like really obviously, that you really enjoy? Maybe you don't have those anymore. Have there been changes, to your role? Have you had, responsibilities given to you or taken away that you've noticed a distinct change in your, happiness at work? Thinking about, when have you been most confident at work? When have you felt that kind of sense of flow? Has it been in a team? Has it been leading, etc., etc.? So we do different meditations, visualizations to find those things, and we use journaling and all sorts of things to get there. Quite careful questions around, for example, not just what do people come to you for, but like, who do you admire? Who are you jealous of? Who really triggers you? Like, why? What do they have that you wish that you had? So it can get really interesting when we think about, why are we dissatisfied? Are we actually putting ceilings on ourselves that we're never going to push through if we don't face the kind of fear underneath it?
Yeah, some good questions there that our listeners could just even journal on themselves. Is there any quick access, free resources online that you can point the listeners to if they wanted to just delve a bit deeper? And if so, where are they?
Yeah, I think, well, to be honest, like, although we've got our podcast is obviously Adventures After Teaching, I was literally chatting to a friend the other day who's a physiotherapist, and she listens to it for career ideas. So I would say, it's free, it's jam-packed with transition stories of people going to project management, program development, all manner of roles. And it's not just about them describing their skills and how they fit, but their career journey in terms of reflecting on how they felt trapped, how they felt they couldn't do things, the relationship with their role. There's always so much gold in there in terms of being able to relate, I think. So I'd really recommend that. We will, it's part of our development plan to be supporting more broadly. Eventually, I'm really passionate about kind of burnout informed career change. I think it's a very different model to going into a CV writer, for example, or even taking a little bit of time to talk about your skills. It's very, very different. It doesn't allow for, as I said, that relationship with stress and identity. Because for some people, when they go through, more intensive coaching, will realize they want something so different. They can't even visualize it at the moment, and that's okay.
Do you take on clients who aren't teachers?
Personally, if I've got capacity for it, I do consider doing that. Yeah, we are as an organisation, we are very like packed. I don't do one-to-one coaching as such around CVs, etc. I do support the community in terms of our membership, so I'll do very quick like group sessions, and one-to-one is me kind of reviewing things. I don't do one-to-one in that sense anymore. One-to-one coaching around identity and those kind of crunch points of, as I said, that dissatisfaction, like it's just not working and I need to shift. Like that's where I'm most interested in terms of one-to-one coaching. Yeah, like it always has been. Like it's not necessarily to say there is an answer, because I think that's a trap in and of itself. But yeah, that we can figure it out in 3 to 6 sessions, can't we? Yeah, but yeah, no, I do still really enjoy one-to-one coaching, particularly with women who maybe are in those kind of leadership roles, or they have that expertise, but it's for whatever reason it's hitting that crunch point of something has got to change. This is unsustainable, whether that means high stress, whether that means there's no satisfaction or joy anymore. There's so much that you can do by creating space for it, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
Jo, honestly, there's so much there that I know our listeners are going to take away from you. If they wanted to find out more and connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so we're Adventures After Teaching, so you can willingly connect with me on LinkedIn. So you'll be able to find me as just Jo Howard, or just search for Adventures After Teaching, the podcast, blog, etc. We've got some free kind of career change quizzes and things like that on our website, which you'd be welcome to using if even, wouldn't necessarily relate if you weren't a teacher, I suppose, but the blog certainly will help. And I think the podcast, as I said, would be really great for getting different ideas. Anyone can email me, joanne@adventuresafterteaching.com as well. Happily chat to anybody. I love getting to know women from all different sectors. And that is, where I started was that leadership and burnout prevention coaching, because I didn't want to work with teachers to start with. I didn't. I think you were one of my first clients, Jasmine. I was like, actually, this is really cool. I can still do exactly what I want to do. I need to go over myself. This is not about teachers versus not teachers. But
amazing. No, I love that. I love your journey and how it's grown into what it is. And I will put a link to your website on the show notes.
Brilliant.
So thank you so much, Jo. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, you're very welcome. Lovely to chat, Jasmine. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. I'm always looking for disruptive women as guests. If you think you'd make a great guest or know anyone who would, then please email me with the details. You can email info@yasminarifcoaching.com. More details in today's show notes. Remember to show up and share your truth, because the world is hungry for women who show up and tell the truth. unafraid and free, expanding to the very edges of who they were always meant to be.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ13 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.